Uh, Hello, everyone. Welcome. Just wanted to give you an update on the P2P side. On Skanda, we have completed the feature-wise implementation as per the protocol, and we are commenced alpha testing. The challenge we have right now is still the number of validators running MEV boost on Cephalonia is only around 400 out of the 2000 odd validators. So that would impact the transaction processing time, and it's not ideal. I did reach out to Yov earlier, and Yov did confirm that he's going to talk to others who run validators on Cephalonia to encourage them to run MEV boost so that we could have a more realistic testing in Cephalonia testnet. The other option is for us to become validators ourselves, but there's been no decision on that front yet. Um, uh, I'll keep you posted on how that goes, but yeah, also like to understand how other teams are with the P2P interface implementation. Um, Sharif or Christoph, or those from Bioeconomy, anyone? Do you want to give an update? Dan as well, yeah.
Yeah, for now we are trying uh, we are trying to implement the discovery part
Mhm.
for the B2B. Yeah, this is it for now.
Okay.
We haven't started on our side. We'll get started in the next few weeks here, I think. We've been focused on a few other things, but hopefully we'll have a chance to start implementing it soon.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I guess same
Yeah,
from
same.
Bicon
Oh.
side also. Yeah. Sorry, Chris.
Oh, sorry. Same for us. Yeah, right now we're focused on just the final compliance with a few of the last spec tests, and afterwards we'll start taking a look at P2P.
Right. I'm also in the process. Sorry, go on.
I'm speaking. I'm working on this Rust bundler with Grid. Currently, the P2P spec. I'm working. I finished the codec part of this domain, gossip sub, and request response and discovery. I'm hoping I could find a node to test maybe some discovery and some basic connection. I have some very draft version of the P2P spec right now, and I also submitted a PR to the bundler spec test about this SSD encoding stuff. It generates some test cases for this SSD encoding. I have a PR for that. I just submitted like 1 hour ago, and maybe guys you can take a look at it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We should be running one hosted bundler on Cephalonia testnet, so node discovery there should be easier for you. In case you're not able to, do let me know. We'll be running our own boot nodes as well. Hopefully, that will help us with the node discovery. But all this is planned in the coming week. We are still setting up the infrastructure to have this working well. And on that front, I'm also going to be working on the Hive tests for the P2P interface. I'll keep you posted once I have things ready. Yeah, that's the status on the P2P side. I was hoping either Drove or Shahaf, anyone from the core team would be available to give us an update on what's changing with V's point. I mean, the latest version that's ready. Does anybody have any idea, or in the absence of them? Okay, I think that's, I think the only other, sorry, did someone?
Quickly on that topic, I'm just curious. You know, we're the bundlers. We're writing all the code that's running in production. I feel like we should have a discussion around the communication of what is going in these releases. Like, I think we should figure out a way in which the bundler group here can, at least have a sense, just a written list of like, hey, this is what the core team is prioritizing to get into this release.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like we're kind of in the dark there. And if it's not like they're, not trying to tell us things. It's just like there isn't anything set up to do it. And like a lot of the communication happens in the Telegram group and kind of gets lost in different chats and whatnot. So I feel like maybe not for 0.7 here, just because we're already, it seems like that's getting close to being ready. And, most of us don't know what's in it. But I think for 0.8 going forward, I would love if we could maybe as a topic in the next call discuss, with the core team, like a real process for figuring out how the entry point and the ERC itself gets changed.
Yeah, I agree. We'll take this up. I'll add it to the agenda for the next call, and I'll also ping you or Drew separately so that they're aware and if they can provide an update on that.
Yeah, because I feel like there's also been multiple times where in different conversations there's been like, oh, this is actually getting fixed in the next iteration of the entry point, or oh, like, we're looking at changing these 4 things or whatever. And a few of us here haven't been kind of privy to those conversations, and it makes for duplicated work and also makes for kind of a longer integration time once 0.7 is out.
Yep.
I also personally think that bundlers need to be included prior to a release.
Yep.
So it doesn't make sense for us to actually call it 0.7 until bundlers have actually tried to integrate with it, because that would at least give us a point to push back on any changes that might not integrate well with our systems. So anyway, I think we obviously need to pick up that conversation when those guys are here, but
Sure.
I just wanted to see if anyone else is feeling similarly there.
Yeah, so for me personally, like I'm not sure what you guys think. For me, entry point upgrades are an extremely torturous process. It takes like about a week of effort for us to migrate to new entry point. And so if I, personally, I think it'd be great to figure out like what things are missing from like a 1.0 release, right? Something that is actually like stable and it's going to be the official entry point moving forward when the EIP is finalized. And I'd much rather just wait until we have that locked down than like keep migrating entry points every couple of months. Yeah.
Agree. And I believe there was another discussion on the first alt mempool as well for Circle. I'm not sure where we are with that discussion. Dan,
Yeah, that I'll update on that. I think so. That is also another part of the like maybe some of my frustrations here is because the core team has been working on some of like thinking about some of these alt mempool stuff on the side and hasn't really shared anything with the bundler group here. And they've kind of mentioned a bunch of times that they're working on different, ways to represent the whitelisting, whether it's kind of interface based, and a drawer and has mentioned that. But I haven't seen anything kind of in writing or anything proposed. So right now that the alt mempool proposal is kind of on hold, waiting for that idea to bubble up from them in some sort of format. I do think as I've thought through what the interface based whitelisting would look like, it's a really good idea. I just haven't had a chance to go update the proposal or even know if maybe I should just throw the proposal out because they're going to put this stuff in the ERC itself. So yeah, I think there needs to be a little bit more communication there.
Yeah. In fact, I have held off on updating the P2P spec for that as well until I hear from them. So I'll probably follow up with Dror and Shahaf on where we are with that. Yeah, the next point in agenda, unless somebody else has anything to say on the previous topic, was Dan, your point on the gas estimations. Is that something you want to discuss in this group now?
Oh, I mean, I wrote that over the last couple weeks here. I don't know if people have had a chance to read it yet, but I think for this group specifically, there's a few things that I think are, at least that when we were writing and integrating with different networks and trying to figure out how to monetize and also provide kind of, you know, good user experiences, we ran into a bunch of different issues with gas estimation that I do think are worth us putting our collective brains together and thinking of ways that we can potentially improve the protocol itself to improve the process. So there were a couple parts in there that it's a long blog post series, but there's a couple of proposals in there that I honestly are not good. They need to be like fleshed out a lot more. But I think the biggest one from my side, and I don't know if other bundlers here have run into this issue, but really it's the signature aggregator gas attribution, as well as the L2 gas attribution, the charging for the L1 call data cost on L2s. That leads to a pretty significant user experience problem where users essentially just have to pay a lot more than they might have to because those pieces of gas usage aren't metered on chain, so they have to be overbid for. Basically, users have to overestimate, and then they're charged for the overestimate in order to make sure their user operations don't get rejected. So the blog post has a suggestion, which, you know, isn't great, and it does lead, especially in the L2 case, it does lead to a different entry point address on each L2 because each L2 needs specific gas metering logic. So I don't know if people have had a chance to look at that yet, but I'd be curious if other bundlers have had other similar experiences to us in that post.
Would you mind linking the post just in case?
Yeah, it's in the bundlers group. I will.
I can share that here. That's the one.
Yep, that's
Yeah,
the first one, and then at the end there's 3 more links to the follow-up blog posts, which outline some more of the problems.
I have like one question. Like we have been recently trying L2s also, obviously, and the way we were implementing is that the official documentation that Optimism and Arbitrum have, like we have using those formulas. So isn't that the right path to calculating pre-verification gas? I mean, those gas estimates we get from their contracts, be it Arbitrum or any gas oracles on Optimism, to get that pre-verification gas. So like how much off those would be in case, like while calculating the pre-verification gas?
On based on our experience, those are just an indicative value. We end up our bundles end up losing even if we follow that logic. So there is something we have to change there. I don't know what is the accurate value. Dan might have more experience on the Arbitrum side. Do you mind if you can share that, Dan? What do you think?
Yeah. Well, so again, the post goes into this, but what it comes down to is you have to charge the user in pre-verification gas for the L1 gas times the L1 gas fee divided by the L2 gas fee. So that you need to actually like calculate what the L2 gas equivalent would be. So in that calculation, there's 2 different fee values, and both of those fee values are changing. So on Optimism, the L1 gas fee only changes every 5 minutes, but on Arbitrum that can change at any time. And the L2 gas fee is always changing. Those are both the base fees. And so if you just estimate a particular value and then the user submits their user operation, call it 2 seconds later after they've gone through the signing process, it's totally possible that the base that fee ratio has moved in the wrong direction for them, and then now you have an underestimate, and the bundler. What we do in our bundler is we run that same calculation before bundling, and anything that has too low of pre-verification gas, we reject, which leads to a kind of because we don't want to lose money in the bundler side. So that leads to a pretty bad user experience where if the ratio moves in the wrong direction, they're going to get their user operations rejected. So what we recommend is that users overestimate that portion. And so in our bundler, in our estimate user operation gas, we add, I believe it's a 25% overhead to that estimate just to accommodate for any fee movements. And that's also doesn't work every time. It can move more than 25% in the time frame in which estimation and submission occurred. So yeah, it's not a great process at the moment.
And the reason is basically that the L1 gas price is changing, right? I mean, like, and in context, like this L1 gas price is not what I mean, like Ethereum gas price is, right?
It's L1, yes, it's L1 or L2 gas price actually, because you
Both
have
could change,
you have to go from essentially you go from a ETH value and you need to convert it into L2 gas, because on Optimism actually they just deduct ETH directly from the bundler's account.
Yeah, if you notice the Dune Analytics thing that's set up, most of the bundlers are actually losing money on Optimism when compared to the other chains.
Yeah. On Arbitrum, I was reading like in their docs only, like it's like determined as L2 call data price, right?
Yeah.
So that's something that we probably get from the contract itself. And from Optimism, it's more a general L1 gas price. But yeah, we also trying Optimism this week and on Girdley Optimism. Right now, it's in profit, but I mean, it's very small data set, to be honest, which we are looking at from our side. So like any proper solution that's out there.
Yeah, I mean, so you can get to a good calculation on both sides, right? It's just the problem that it's a moving target. And so both Arbitrum and Optimism, you can make calls to the contracts to do the estimation and add that to the pre-verification gas. I think there's a few examples in the open source land of teams doing that. I know the StackUp team has got some examples of that. But the problem is it's a moving target. The suggestion in the blog post for solving this was to actually move that calculation into the entry point as part of its gas metering, but that does require per chain logic.
You mentioned last time like someone from like some user had to pay like some 110 ETH or whatever. So what happened in that case? Was
that's an Optimism specific problem. So Optimism's interesting. It's different than Arbitrum in the way that its priority fee doesn't apply to the L1 component. So in a regular Optimism transaction. So in a regular Optimism transaction, the user just gets their the L1 component deducted directly from their account balance, and then the gas is only the L2 gas, and then the base fee and the priority fee, the resultant gas fee there, only applies to the L2 execution portion. So if you are using the priority fees, you might see like priority fees that look kind of, they're actually a lot smaller on Optimism than they would be on ETH, but you'll see kind of in the like hundreds to thousands.
Yeah, 3 way and 30 goe kind of.
Yeah, exactly. And the issue is that when you do this conversion in a user operation of the L1 gas to the pre-verification gas, you have to divide by the L2 base fee.
Yep.
And on Optimism, the L2 base fee is
very close to zero. Yeah.
It's close to zero. It's used as a DDoS mechanism only. It's really not. It's very different than on most other chains. So that means pre-verification gas is huge.
Yep.
So if you use the network's suggested, or like what Ethers by itself will suggest for a priority fee, which I think is just like defaults to, you know, so like 1.5 Gwei or something like that. And then you multiply that by that estimated pre-verification gas value, which can be in like the millions, even sometimes more of gas. You end up with a massive payment. So I think that's also explained somewhere in the post.
Right, right. I also had questions around call gas limit. I mean, like I asked on the group that what's the precise way to calculate call gas limit, because there are two functions, simulate handle ops and simulate validation. Simulate validation as such can't give you this, so you need to maybe use ethers for deployed wallets, but for undeployed wallets, you can't do that because it's still an EA address. So you fall back to simulate handle op. But simulate handle op also has its problem. Like if you need to subtract from the paid value that you get, you have to subtract the fee that was sent in the user op, and then kind of reverse calculate by subtracting the pre-op gas and pre-verification gas. But the thing is that in this way, you are expecting sending a non-zero max fee gas or max priority fee. If you send something like a non-zero max fee, you expect the account to hold funds or the paymaster to hold funds. But that might not always be the case. Like we're still estimating. It might be that for a token paymaster, what you might be doing is like you might be getting some estimations in first place, then getting quotes for those whatever ERC20 tokens. So this does not work. And I think Christoph also summarized very beautifully that it's a problem. Like you ideally, like the ERC mentions that max priority fee should default to 0, but the moment you send it non-zero, the account didn't pay gas or whatever comes into the picture. So then, like obviously there are two routes. Like one we tried is like we had to kind of state override the account balance. That's not a foolproof method, but it's something to get the estimates in place. Other can be like sending dummy paymaster data, but then you have to make sure that those paymasters are funded when the estimation is there, so you can override that. But I guess these two methods are also not very foolproof. So any like ways to calculate call gas limit accurately in all cases?
I think by call gas limit, you mean like the verification gas limit, right? If you're talking about like transfers and paymaster stuff.
It's basically the user of execution. So not verification gas limit, just the call gas limit aspect of it, where the actual call from entry point to the wallet happens.
Got it. Yeah. Again, there's a bunch more of our explorations in the post as well. I think we've had a lot of different conversations in the bundler group over the past even like 6 months on gas estimation, and I don't think we've really driven to a perfect way to do it.
Yeah.
One thing that both of those methods that you mentioned leave out is the fact that you can't actually just measure the amount of gas used during during a simulation or something and use that as a gas estimation, because in the EVM, gas used is not equal to gas required for that transaction to go through. There's a few, specifically the 164th rule for recursive calls, or just calls in general, I mean, that you have to account for. So that's why node clients like Reth, Geth, whatever, they actually do binary searches when you call ETH estimate gas, because it's a non-trivial problem to actually come up with a valid estimate based off of just looking at gas used. So they actually just binary search, figure out the highest gas value that doesn't revert, and use that as the estimate. So we actually have a way of doing that in Solidity, and that's described in the post, but that doesn't solve the issue that you also brought up of what to do with when you want to estimate the cost of a transfer during the validation stage. So let's say you're using an ERC 20 paymaster and you've got a user that doesn't have their account funded yet, and you want to estimate the gas that needs to be used during the verification step. There's no way to do that because you can't actually simulate correctly that the actual ERC 20 transfer that happens because the user doesn't have funds yet. So that'll fail every single time. So unfortunately, the best solution that we came up with at Alchemy for that would be to, we actually, and this is also in the post, we always set, we ignore any max priority fee or max fee per gas on any estimation call, even though that's slightly against the spec. We always add the cost of a ETH transfer if there's no paymaster being used, so it accounts for that gas. And then we actually push it back onto the user for the paymaster case and say, if you're using a paymaster that does any sort of ERC 20 transfers or really anything that has to do with the fee token, you know, causing some sort of gas usage, you have to account for that off client. So you have to account for that on the user side and add that gas in. I hate that solution, but we couldn't figure out a general solution that worked for that.
So basically, the user as a client has to send dummy maybe paymaster and data, right? Because that paymaster and data might expire from request to request. So for them to, for like where the estimation is happening, the estimation should know that this paymaster is ready to sponsor, but it might be some like in estimation you send dummy signatures also, right? So that those might have to pass, or like it might be that verification gas limit comes like in the passkey case too large, so you can't rely on, let's say, simple ECDSC signatures. You have to send dummy valid passkey signatures. So I guess maybe one way is to ask the client only to keep sending paymaster and data dummy ones. But one issue again is that the paymaster should have balance at that time. But that I guess can be solved. Like, so we are using ETH call to override some states. So we paymaster state, we override, and maybe we come up with a full solution of this.
Yeah. So the dummy paymaster and data doesn't solve the and I'll give a concrete example here. Doesn't solve the ERC 20 transfer case. So this is specifically, we were looking to provide support, and this is part of that alt mempool stuff. We were looking to provide support for Pimlico's USDC paymaster, and that did require some whitelisting rules and whatnot to make sure that you can actually do the transfer in the validation step. But also, because you do the transfer in the validation step, you need to account for that gas usage. And if the user doesn't have USDC at the time of estimation, you can't account for that gas usage because it'll fail. The transfer will fail every time. So the only way to do it is, because as a bundler, you don't actually know what token the ERC 20 paymaster is using, so you can't really use state overrides reliably there. You just have to account for it off chain, or not off chain, off client. So we just always add a static gas value when using that paymaster to account for that transfer.
And what is the static value based on historical ERC 20 transfers using that?
Yeah, we chose a very pessimistic value of like, I think we chose like 75K gas or something like that, which is too high. It's probably that because of that's like in what an ERC 20 transfer costs, including like the intrinsic gas and stuff. So it's probably too high, but it's something around 50K plus that you need to add. And that's something that like each paymaster developer would maybe need to like publish alongside their code, which is like, hey, if you're using 0 gas fees, you need to add an extra, 50K gas overhead to your estimates to ensure that when the gas fees are non-zero and you can actually pay for the funds, pay for the transfer, it's accounted for.
Correct.
Yeah, I'll go through your blog. Like I didn't find time to read it yesterday.
Any other questions from anyone else?
I've got a question. Is anyone here using any sort of any sort of like bundle marketplace or Flashbots Protect like system on Polygon mainnet for their their bundles?
That was my question also. Like we are also exploring like Polygon, BSC, what solutions are out there. I know of Marlin right now, that they provide that solution. I have not tested it or anything.
What was that again, Yash? Sorry, I didn't hear the name.
It's Marlin. So Marlin is kind of, so what they do is that they have this MEV Bore implementation out there, which so basically a bundler kind of being like a searcher can send basically your protected user house. But I feel like on Polygon, the issue of MEV and private transaction is slightly less, maybe because the rate of transactions or throughput is very high. I mean, like as such, I don't remember if we are being front run on Polygon.
No, we do. I mean, any operation we do on the LeFi aggregator on Polygon, and we've noticed a front running there as well.
Oh yeah, we charge a slight fee in our bundler. Like we say, hey, you have to increase your priority fee by like, I think we use I don't know, 5% or something like that. So it leads to like per user operation on Polygon at regular gas fees, like half a cent in US dollars. And that will get front run every single time. So actually like every single one of our almost every one of our bundles that we submit on Polygon right now is getting front run. And which actually leads our bundler on Polygon is losing money because it's every bundle that it lands actually it gets front run, so it reverts on chain. So we lose a little bit of gas each time. So yeah, we're very interested in checking out any sort of protect like endpoints on Polygon.
We do send like with a slightly higher gas price. Like we knew that traffic would be a lot, and like we were always ready with this, so we already were sending with a slightly high gas price. But yeah, Marlin is something that I plan to explore. And see like how it works, and so yeah, and but the thing is like this thing does not exist on BSC. Like I'm not sure about like what's the situation there, and like we are getting front run on BSC. For clients it's bad, so we pushed a fix basically sending them the front run transaction hash, so that at least the client side does not break. But yeah, like it's just bad out there. It's a dark forest.
Yeah, and once the P2P interface is ready, we definitely need some kind of MEV protection in place, otherwise we'll run into the same issues there. So yeah, that's another thing, a topic for discussion and future things. I don't know. I don't know how other chains are going to handle this MEV stuff. At least on Gnosis and Ethereum are closely aligned with their setup on Flashbot stuff, but the other chains we need to figure out what to do.
Yeah, for Optimism, I think Drawer last time mentioned that the Optimism team is like waiting for somebody to just integrate this, right? Like someone build it and integrate it. But yeah, for other chains, it's hard. I mean.
Partha, I'm sorry. You mean that you are going to solve this problem on the level of the bundler, yeah? Or
no, not on the level of the bundler. We are dependent on the underlying chain to have some kind of option to provide MEV protection.
so like using third-party services, yeah?
Sorry, using what services?
You mean using like something like third-party services providing this MEV protection?
Correct. Yeah.
But don't you think that, for example, when you are ready with P2P interface, so I mean you have all the possibilities to protect this, no? I mean on the level of, for example, imagine you have for example, already developed this network. This network, for example, making some P2P interaction before sending something to the chain. So why not protect it on the level of the bundler?
So Bogdan, the bundlers still depend on block builders of the underlying chain to submit transactions, right? So even if you were to encrypt the P2P interface mempool on the ERC 4337 bundler setup, you would still there's a possibility of it being front run when you submit it or relay the transaction to L1.
Okay. There is another question I wanted to ask you. Can I?
Sure.
So another question is, for example, what do you have now? For example, we are going to use it, okay, and I think maybe in a couple of months will be production networks. But for example, there will be, for example, different providers. I mean, for example, Etherspot bundlers, then, for example, Alchemy bundlers, all they have different URLs, okay?
Yep.
So we need to build some, and for example, we want to be like, we want to build like a redundant interface, like to deliver 100% availability. So we need, for example, to build something like load balancing or something. For example, in front of Scanda, in front of Etherspot bundlers. Understand? Yeah.
Yep.
So that's another question that. But it's not to the team of bundlers, of course, but to the users, because for now, actually, if somebody want to use it, they have a possibility, a choice of many different providers.
Right.
So is the question there, like, is this group going to provide some sort of load balancing, or?
No, it's just, I think it's, no, it's just a thought, you know, that.
Yeah. So this is a pretty common thing in our like just JSON RPC and Ethereum in general. But you know, we have a lot of our customers that run something very similar in order to. Sometimes they'll be completely load balancing. Sometimes they'll have a primary, secondary. Sometimes they'll have a primary and 3 secondaries, but usually that's built kind of individually by each application to fit their needs.
But I believe, Dan, Bogdan was looking at load balancing across providers, not specific to a provider. So he wants to achieve load balancing between, say, Scanda and Rundler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some interesting issues that we've seen. I actually do think that there's teams that have tried to do this, because we've gotten issues reported to us where someone will estimate gas using a different bundler, and then they'll try to submit it to our bundler, or they'll do the opposite, and it won't work because every bundler does gas estimation slightly differently and requires different pre-verification gas and whatnot. So there's going to be some compatibility issues, but assuming that once we get the P2P mempool working, the P2P mempool will be handling like all of once the P2P mempool is up, every bundler that's attached to that should be compatible in pretty much every way. So we should be able to load balance across these things.
Yep.
Fine.
Yeah. That's 100%. Yes. That's when will be the mempool. It will unite all equipment. But okay, can we return to this question of front running? So I mean, in case of front running, for example, I'm a customer. Okay, I want my protocol to use bundler network. In case somebody is attacking bundler trying to put a transaction on chain, will my user operation will fail or no, or it will be executed?
Users are actually fine in this. Senders of user operations are fine. The only thing that could happen, so for example, like let's say you send a bundle to a bundler that isn't using the public mempool and is just trying to provide some sort of like Flashbots protect, like say, hey, we're not going to front run you or back run you in our bundle, and they submit their bundle to the public mempool. It's totally possible there that someone looks at the transaction, unbundles it, sandwiches your user operation, and then resubmits the bundle to the point where your user operation then gets, you know, a worse price, basically, due to the sandwich. But in terms of like actually making it revert or making it fail, I don't think that's
Okay,
possible.
so it's work like I'm sorry, yeah, it works the same like in, for example, I'm sending through MetaMask. I understand.
Correct.
Okay,
But-
yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I would just another note on this topic. I think in general, the topic of bundler transaction submission is probably the most concerning thing on my mind in terms of P2P mempool, like actually working on anything other than L1 ETH. I do think it will work on Arbitrum. Oh, also, I did want to announce. If anyone here knows any Arbitrum delegates, there is a vote going on right now for them to add the ETH_send raw transaction conditional endpoint. For whatever reason, they are going through a full governance vote on whether or not to add that endpoint. And I think everyone here wants that endpoint there because as we discussed last time, Arbitrum is one of the chains that with that endpoint, the P2P mempool will actually function well on.
Yep.
So yeah, we if you know anyone, it looks like it's gonna pass. I think we're like 75% of the way there, and everyone's saying yes. It's just more a sense of getting people to actually vote.
Let's let's tag people who are the governors and probably get them to vote in our favor.
I remember Yoav is a delegate.
Yeah, he voted for it. He used he's got a lot of delegation power, so he voted for it. But yeah, I'm concerned about Polygon and BSC and basically all these changes.
Ideally, we should probably turn off P2P interface until the chain supports MEV protection for now. Only enable P2P on chains where there is MEV protection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is probably basically, I mean, can we, other than Ethereum and Arbitrum post this?
Gnosis, I think, definitely has. I don't know what other chain would have, but yeah, I think we should probably pilot it main on Ethereum and Arbitrum, and let's see how others work out.
Sounds good.
Right. Any other questions? Okay, then fine. Thank you. Thanks for joining. I'll reach out to Dror, Shahaf, or Yob. Yob is traveling, I believe, but Dror and Shahaf should be able to respond. I'll relay the feedback, and hopefully we'll hear from them on not on V7, but on the next one. Let's hopefully get for better information. Cheers. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
See you guys.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.
All right, take care. Bye.